All right, welcome back to Onebar and Lupagus Show on Onebar. We got Justin from the Purple Persuasion in the house. It has been a minute. I bugged him this week, said, man, what do we got to do to get your ass back on the show? And he is here. Justin, what is shaking, man? How's life?
Good. Thanks for having me on as always. It's good to be back. Vikings are good right now, 14-2, probably going to be 15-2, hopefully tomorrow night. But Vikings are good, very good. So I feel good about it too. So it's good to be back, and thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, we're going to be going over some of the bigger news lately over the last couple of days. Be sure to head over to X, Twitter, whatever the hell you want to call it. Give Purple Persuasion a follow. I'm seeing 11,400-ish, man.
Yeah, it was a little slowed down there a little bit, but we got back up. It's kind of real, and now the Vikings are good. A lot of people are back engaged. Maybe the people that checked out early on or whatever, or maybe even the people are just now jumping on X trying to get involved in Vikings social media and stuff. But yeah, about 11 and a half coming up here. So doing pretty good. But thanks for all the followers. Thanks for all the support, everyone. Can't do without you guys.
All you late bandwagoners, shame on you. Shame on you, man. You should
have been from
the start.
I know. We still get some new followers that have been around X for a while. Maybe they're just seeing it now, or they pushed off as long as they could, and then they gave in. So who knows?
All right, I'm going to start with this one, and we're going to talk JJ McCarthy trade talk, scuttlebutt, love it or hate it. It's out there. We're going to talk about that in a minute, so don't blow it yet. But I got to ask you, since it's been so long, obviously you are a big JJ McCarthy guy. You wanted McCarthy here. And when it came to Sam Darnold, I don't know. It seemed like you were fairly lukewarm, is what it is. What's just your personal take right now on Sam the man? Not if he's coming back, whatever. Do you love the big ginger?
I like Sam Darnold. I think he blew everybody's expectations out of the water. I think if you hate Sam Darnold at this point, then you are not a fan of the Minnesota Vikings. I've always been a fan. Obviously we were a big JJ fan. I'm a big JJ fan. I do think he's the future, but I think what Sam Darnold's accomplished this year is just light years beyond what anybody could have projected. He's just dominated. He's played at nearly a top 5 MVP level, maybe even top 3. If you look at some of the statistics he's gotten, he's a winner, and he's 27 years old, and he's proving what he was. He was a top 3 draft pick back in 2018, 2019, whatever it was. And he's proved that he can run an offense. I think KOC is just dominant, an elite quarterback whisperer, and I think he's gotten the best out of Sam Darnold. He's playing better as the season goes on. It's, he kind of started off hot and then kind of, slowed down a little bit, got cooled down a little bit, and I think he's just been playing very well, and I expect that to continue into the playoffs. So I'm very impressed, very happy with where we're at with Sam Darnold, and hopefully he can take us to the promised land.
Well, I saw one of the things you put out there. We might as well just keep talking Sam Darnold. Jeremy Fowler predicts, after talking with many around league, Darnold will get a Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith type of deal, equivalent to 3 years, $100 million. Whether that's the Vikings or not, doesn't that seem low?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely way too low.
Baker's $33 million a year.
Yeah, and they're older too. So actually, Baker's the same draft class as Sam Darnold, but I think it's going to be like a Kirk Cousins or more. I think 45 million is probably the minimum I think he could get. And depending on how far he goes in the playoffs, or even like a Super Bowl champion MVP, he could demand whatever he wants, in my opinion. And I think whatever that $0.33 million, annual value per year, it's way too low. And I think Fowler said he gets a little bit more guaranteed money out of that. I think that's not even the bare. That might be like what maybe you would do with the Vikings, maybe taking a team-friendly deal. But I even hate that conversation, because none of these players really do take these player-friendly deals. I think Tom Brady and maybe even Patrick Mahomes might be an exception of it. It's an exception, not the rule. And I think Darnold's never been paid before, so I think he's going to try to get as much as he can. And obviously, Vikings have the cards with the tag and things. But we could talk about that if you want or not.
Well, let's talk about our beautiful defensive coordinator, Brian Flores, real quick. I saw another thing you put out from Schefter, saying that he's considered a top 3 head coach candidate in the upcoming hiring circle. And when you look at potential openings, there could be like 6 to 8 jobs open, which is absolutely insane to say. I mean, maybe 8's a little much, but there's anywhere from, so if he's a top 3, that gets me thinking, like, this Brian might go bye-bye. It makes me sad.
I do too. 2 months ago, if you asked me, I think there was no chance, even like people around the league and stuff saying like his lawsuit that he has with the NFL, it was really going to inhibit him in this coaching cycle. He's obviously a defensive minded head coach, which kind of the wave now seems to be offensive minded quarterback whispering type coaches. But I think the more we've get into it and what he's done with this defense, and it's not just a 1-year thing. He's done it for 2 years now. And there's no like person on the roster, I think that's like, wow, this person's like the Myles Garrett or the TJ Watt, like where it's like, those type of players. He's really, these people aren't like the most well-known people in the NFL, and he's turned them into Pro Bowlers, possibly all pros. And I really do think I think he kind of is going to get a job this year. Now, I do think he's going to be picky. This is his last shot as a head coach. If he's not just going to go to the Raiders or some crappy team where he's going to get kicked out. I think he's going to be pretty picky. I do think the Bears actually are really interested in him. I think that's, especially living in Chicago, I hear a lot of buzz about that here. But the Patriots organization, they do end up dumping Gerard Mayo. I mean, I think that's him and Vrabel probably are the top two candidates for that position. But I do lean towards now him probably leaving. It's maybe higher than 50%. It's not 100. But yeah, it makes me sad too. And it's we'll see. It's still the wave as offensive coaches, but I think he's done enough. I mean, he's going to get grilled in these interviews because of the Tua comments, kind of how he's changed and how he would, if he were to go to like Chicago, for example, how would he deal with, with Caleb Williams? But I do lean towards him probably leaving, but I don't think it's a large percentage. And I think what Schefter said is him, Ben Johnson, and who's the defensive coordinator for the Lions, Aaron Glenn or whatever. Yeah, I think those are the three people he listed as the top three in this coaching cycle. And Vrabel's out there. I think we got 3-4 positions open right now already, and there's probably going to be another 4 or 5 on Black Monday. So we'll see, but I think that's something to absolutely watch. And I do think that's going to really inhibit the Vikings defense next year because nobody's going to be the same as Brian Flores. It takes a couple of years to kind of build that up. So we'll see.
Well, let's talk assistant coaches because you mentioned some assistant coaches that might be very attractive to other teams as well. Either it's they get a promotion on another team or whatever, but the guys you mentioned, Durante Jones is a guy that could potentially take Brian Flores' spot if he leaves, but we got Josh McCown, Durante Jones, Keenan McCardle, and Wes Phillips as guys that were mentioned as players or coaches that could leave as well. Which ones of these names you think have a better chance of going bye-bye?
Yeah, I think Josh McCown's probably going to be gone. I think so. He interviewed for head coaches before. I think the Texans maybe a few years back. I really think he's gone. I think he's going to get some type of offensive coordinator type coach, an elevation from his title. Now, I don't know if he's going to call the plays or not, but I think he's going to be heavily sought after. I think Wes Phillips is like something that really is intriguing. Like his name's not really floated around a lot, but he's kind of the Kevin O'Connell type. He's got the coaching tree with his I think it's his father or his uncle or whatever. With Wade Phillips, so he's got that coaching tree in him. He's not calling the plays, so that's going to maybe inhibit some teams. But I do think he's flying under the radar, which is kind of weird, which I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some interviews. He may not get an actual job. But that one kind of surprised me with his background and he's studied under Kevin O'Connell for a while, McVay. So that one's intriguing. Keenan McCardell's an intriguing one. If like Wes Phillips leaves, I think he's in line for a hot offensive coordinator type position at some point. And what he's done with the wide receiver room, I think he's going to be looked at. Probably not for a head coaching position, but I wouldn't be surprised. Especially if Brian Flores leaves, I could see him poaching several members from our staff over there. Durante Jones, I think, is probably the future. Even Mike Pettin was a head coach at one point. I wouldn't rule him out. He's the assistant head coach. I do think if Brian Flores were to leave, I do think they would probably hire and promote somebody internally first. Maybe there's Robert Saleh or somebody like that out externally. But I do believe if Brian Flores leaves, I do think they would probably promote one of those linebackers coach, Durante Jones, Mike Pettin, somebody like that kind of has experience with Flores and with the scheme. But yeah, there's quite a few people on the route. And once you're 14-2 operation, that's kind of the con of being good. People are going to poach your people off of it. So it's something probably I would expect as Viking fans that one or two coaches probably leave this cycle from our team.
Kevin O'Connell is officially creating the Kevin O'Connell coaching tree.
Yeah, he's got his own tree right now. He's a limb. He was a limb off the McVay tree now, but I think he's his own shoot now. And
big trunk, big hog of a trunk.
Yeah, he's his own new tree right now. So it's pretty cool to see. And he's young. He's going to be the coach here for a very long time.
If Wes Phillips gets a head coaching job, I will eat this microphone. I've seen the same things, and he probably deserves. He's a very underrated guy. Like, what does he do? How much is he involved? Because with Kevin O'Connell, I think he gets kind of pushed under the rug where he doesn't get the credit. And to be honest, if he got hired, I would not be sad one bit if they were to.
I wouldn't either.
Like McCardle or McCown, if they were to upgrade them, one of those two guys, the OC.
We got people for the OC and the DCP, DC and OC grooming, coming up right now. So if they were to poach somebody, I think Flores would be the only one that I'd be like, oh man, that's a huge bummer. But outside of that, Kevin O'Connell calls the plays. I wouldn't be too, and then we got McKeenna McCardell easily move up Josh McCown and Grant Udisky. He's like 26, 27 years old. Like he's the assistant QB coach. Kevin O'Connell really likes him, and I think he's been given a promotion every single year. So there's something low key that they want to protect him as well. So they got a future, especially on the offensive side of the ball. The defense side would worry me a little bit, but that's the kind of the part about being a 15-2, hopefully, operation. So we'll see.
All right. Well, we got to talk JJ McCarthy.
Yeah.
It seems like all the fans, all the media is just like, this ain't happening. This is stupid. I mean, Schefter obviously got this started by saying teams will call the Vikings.
Absolutely.
Whether the Vikings hang up on them or tell them to get lost is another thing, but they will be calling them. I mean, my thought is whether they call them, there must be some sort of crazy price that they would take it. But like when all is said and done, he ain't going anywhere.
I don't think he's going to. I think things can change. I think this whole Sam Darnold, JJ McCarthy situation is really ever changing. It's week to week, in my opinion. Like if you were to ask me 1 month ago, my opinion has changed because we've got new data points and you got to reassess the situation. I really do think Darnold's performance in the playoff is going to have a big say of like kind of how the league views him, even if he wins a Super Bowl, damn, Darnold's probably coming back for sure. He flops on Sunday and flops in round one. I think that makes the decision easier to move on from him. And it's what people remember. It's kind of like the Kirk Cousins check down on 4th and 8 or whatever. That's what people remember, even though he was pretty okay that whole game outside of that. But here's, in my opinion, is I don't think you can have both. I think the Vikings need to either commit, you give Sam Darnold a 3-year, 4-year deal, or is JJ your future and you got to move on? And because both JJ McCarthy and Sam Darnold are going to have all-time values this offseason. They're not going to get any higher. The quarterback draft is not good with Shooter Sanders and Cam Ward. Both of them are projected even lower than McCarthy was if they were all in the same draft. And a lot of draft analysts are saying that they aren't even worth a first-round pick. So, and there's going to be like 8 to 10 quarterback needy teams. So you got to get the compensation. I lean towards what they probably will end up doing is tagging and trading Sam Darnold, and it'll be he's going to get a big say in it. They're not going to screw him over. I think there was definitely a handshake deal before the season. I don't think the Vikings are that type of an organization. They have kind of been ruthless at some points, maybe more than we kind of think they're all like honky dory and everything. But I really do think they got to make a decision, and it's either commit to Sam Darnold and spread that cap out a little bit, 3-4 years. He's only 27. This is not the same situation as Kirk Cousins was last year, 36 coming off an Achilles or whatever. But I do think JJ McCarthy is the right choice. I think Kevin O'Connell has made whatever quarterback starts. I mean, Dobbs looked half comments that, Nick Mullins is throwing 400 yards a game. Kirk Cousins had his best season of his career. I really think that Kevin O'Connell can bring out the best. And I think you got to weigh the cap situation. Yes, we have a lot of dead cap right now, but as the years go on, it does come back to bite you. And I don't think the Vikings did everything to get everything cleared off the books just to kind of go back into that situation. Now, if Sam Darnold gets to the NFC Championship game, plays really good, wins the Super Bowl, hands down, I think he's probably back. But I do think both quarterbacks, you're going to get first round pick. I think JJ McCarthy obviously is a little bit more value because you don't have to pay him. But I think you're getting a first round pick and change probably for both of them, in my opinion, as of now. But that's kind of where I stand. I really think you got to keep both. I think your two most probable options are they tag and trade Darnold and JJ McCarthy's your quarterback 1 for next year, or they give Sam Darnold like a 3 or 4 year type extension, big money, and then they probably trade JJ McCarthy for a big haul. And I lean towards option 1 being what the Vikings will end up doing, but we'll see. It is ever changing, like I said, and I think in 2 weeks it could be totally different, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, etc. But that's kind of where I stand. I think there's a lot of levels, a lot of layers to it. I think bringing Sam, a lot of people have floated like, oh, just tag him and bring them both back and let JJ sit another year. Yeah, and that is an option. It's not a 0%er, but in my opinion, you're screwing over Sam. What if he gets hurt or regresses? Well, in 2026, nobody's going to want him, and you just screwed him out of his big deal. It also, you have to take the full cap hit, the 441 or 42 million right off the bat. So that's Vikings got 33 free agents next year. So that leaves you like 30 mil. And, you got to pay your current players. And if you want to be competitive in free agency, that's going to inhibit you. So I think if they were to keep Sam, they would probably want to spread it out a little bit more, backload it. And I just don't think Sam Darnold wants to have, JJ McCarthy is the highest drafted quarterback in the Vikings franchise history. Why would he want to come here and have him like sitting behind him? It just makes the whole situation weird. If he has a bad game or throws 3 picks again, everybody's going to be JJ. And I think it's just, you can't keep two franchise quarterbacks for multiple years, in my opinion. So I think there's just, yes, they could bring them both back, and here we go again, round 2, and delay it to 2026. It's not a 0%er, but I just think there's too much. It's too weird. And I just think JJ's too valuable to trade right now, and he is the future and his age and everything. So we'll see. That's where I stand. There's a lot there. I've talked a lot there, but it's there's a lot to it, and there's a lot of moving parts. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's only going to continue to gain more moving parts in the coming weeks, coming months. I gave this to Lupagus on Rise and Skull, our Friday morning show. I'm going to give you the same scenario. I already know the answer, but I don't care. I'm giving it to you anyways.
All
right. So let's say it's either do it or you're pulling the trigger. You're saying screw off. So it's let's say Sam Darnold takes the scenario is Darnold brings the Vikings to the NFC Championship game.
Mm-hmm.
Whether he wins or not, I'm not even going past. I'm just saying they make it at least that far.
Okay.
The Titans offer, the Titans receive McCarthy in a 6th rounder. The Vikings get Simmons a round 2 pick and a round 5.
I think that's a screw it right there, in my opinion. I think it's got to be a first rounder.
I knew it was going to be a screw it.
Yeah, it's got to be a first. You got to get a first rounder, and I think you get changed like a 3rd or 4th in there. But if it's not a first, then I would just tell teams to screw off. And I really do think he's going to have that value. If there was a high quarterback, there was like 4 like last year or the 2024 draft, where there's like 4 or 5 good quarterbacks right at the first round. That changes things a little bit, but they're not good this year, in my opinion. So I think Vikings did a good job drafting JJ last year and not waiting to this year's draft class to make that decision. But definitely a screw it there.
You and Lupagus hate Jeffrey Simmons more than anything in the world.
I think he's good, but
I actually kind of like that trade a bit, probably more than I should, because I look at Simmons as like a first round pick.
Throwing Sam Darnold there, I'll take that all day. Not JJ though.
I knew there was no way in hell. I could have probably put about 6 first rounders and that might have been a screw.
6 first round. I think if you get 2, I'd be tempted there.
2.
But it depends how Darnold plays. If Darnold is the defense carrying the team in there, or did Darnold throw 5 touchdowns, no picks? I think that's his performance is really gonna weigh kind of what the outcome of how things are gonna go. But, 1 week at a time. That's all we can do. We're in a Super Bowl run. We have the whole off season to talk this. I think the Vikings haven't even made a decision on the whole thing, from what I've gleaned. Obviously, the fans, we all are worried about next week, next month, next year. Let's just live in the moment. We're literally 1 game away from having the first seed, a bye, and the driver's seat to the Super Bowl. So that's the priority.
Boom. Justin from the TPP. Head over to X. Be sure to follow them, the Purple Persuasion, man. We appreciate it. Next time we talk, we'll be talking about how we kicked the Lions' ass tomorrow evening, and it'll be wonderful, man.
I hope so, too. Thanks again for having me on. Appreciate it, as always.
Sure, man. Thank you.